الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا وعزيزنا وكريمنا ورحيمنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وأجماعه وأزواجه وعلينا معهم برحمتك وجودك يا أرحم الراحمين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى عز وجل في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية. There was once a person, he had a horse and he wanted to sell the horse. You might have heard of this before. So he told one of his friends, you know what, I'm not a good salesperson. People who are, anyone a salesperson here? If you're a salesperson here, raise your hand. Only one person? Nah, you know, Bangladeshi community, everybody's a salesperson. I've been to Sylhet. Went to Biani Bazaar, Gulaf Gonj, Moli Bazaar. Kakral? It's called Kakral in Dhaka. A salesperson, I had a friend who was a salesperson the other day, I met him. I just asked him why he uses a Galaxy phone. And it was as if he was trying to sell the phone to me. And I said, hey buddy, I just asked you why you have the phone. So he said, you know what, I'm not good at selling. Can you sell the horse for me? He said, all right. He gets up there and he's like, you know, this horse is so fast that cheetahs, when they start racing with this horse, they even get tired. And you know, this horse is so strong that it can bench press 300. And you know, this horse, so the owner quickly tapped him. He said, what's up? He said, yo, I don't want to sell it anymore. He said, why, what happened? He said, I didn't even know my horse was this great. I have a couple of my old friends here from madrasa days, back in the days. So my nafs is telling me to speak on the deen. But inshallah, when I hear with my own ears, I'll have more amal on it, inshallah. Once, Malik bin Dinar, rahimahullah, great scholar. A scholar who was Sahib al-Kashf, a scholar who was from the awliyaullah, was once walking past and he saw a child. And as he saw this child, as many of us do, you see a 5-6-year-old kid playing around. You just look at him and you say, well, he's a little kid, man. Wait till life hits him. Wait till he gets 15, 16, and he has to worry about Jessica and Monica and Rukhsana. Malik bin Dinar walked past. Then he said, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يسلم على الصبيان. The Prophet of Allah said salam upon children. So he stopped. There was a difference between us and them. We hear Quran and Hadith to amuse ourselves, to entertain ourselves. So we can tweet and retweet and post on Facebook. Great lecture, mashallah, Iman is on a rise. Feel the Iman rush. Them, they hear the Quran or Hadith and it hits them. And it turns their life around and they immediately act upon it. Umar bin al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and this ties in with the nafs. It's because your nafs is who you are. It's what propagates you to do good and prevents you from doing good. It's what propagates you to do evil and what prevents you from doing evil. It's the way you mold it. Umar radiallahu anhu standing. We talk about oppression in Islam. We talk about the great tyrants of the Rashidun. We talk about how the Khulafa Rashidin were great tyrants. Wal-iyadu billah. Umar radiallahu anhu is standing there and he says, you are making meher too expensive. The dowries are too expensive. He said, the dowries have become too expensive. We're going to stipulate a certain amount. See, he said marriage jokes, and all of a sudden, when I came up here, I said, I'm not going to do any marriage jokes. Nothing about marriage today. This is what happens when you should have done dua that I get married. That would have probably got accepted. Are you married? They say that there's a hadith. If you do dua for your brother, the angels say Ameen and say for you the same. So there was one person, he was married and he was doing dua. He met a friend in the masjid. I wasn't intending on doing this joke, but he met a friend in the masjid and he said, brother, please do dua for me when you wake up for tahajjud, that I get married. I'm not married. So, his wife woke him up for tahajjud and he's doing dua. And he said, Ya Allah, please give this brother a pious, nice wife. So his wife smacks him from the back. He says, what's going on? She must have been an American wife. He turns around, he says, what's going on? She said, don't you know the angels say Ameen and you get the same? Umar radiallahu anhu said that the dowry is getting too expensive. We're going to stipulate it to a certain amount so that you can't raise the price. A woman stands up from the crowd. You talk of women rights. You talk of oppressing the women. Wallahi, when in Jahiliyyah, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ, when women were being put underneath the ground, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam came and said, the same woman that was put underneath the ground, Al-Jannatu tahta aqdam al-ummahat, and came and said, Jannah is underneath the same woman's foot. You put her underneath the ground, and Nabi alayhi salam put Jannah underneath her feet. You speak of women's rights. So she stands up and she says, Oh Omar, stop right there. How dare you stipulate a certain amount for dowries when Allah in His Quran says that a woman can ask as much as she wants for dowry, even if it's hordes and mountains of gold. If it was you and I, what would we say? You're a woman. What do you know about Quran Hadith? Or, as scholars or people are very famous, they always have a second opinion. No, that's not what the ayat means. It means something else. Because we need to mold to make ourselves look right. Our nafs comes and tells us, no. If you look wrong in front of people, you'll be embarrassed. Change the text of the Quran or Hadith. One time this woman, not a marriage joke, but she lost her necklace. So she said, Oh Allah, whatever happens, before I say this, I'll tell you another one. There was Maulana. He was walking and it was raining. Sometimes I went to one masjid in I'm not going to mention the masjid's name. I went to one masjid and I was praying salah, I was leaving, and I accidentally stepped on an area where it said, please don't step there. And I didn't see it because I was traveling. So the uncle turns around and tells me that, brother, don't put your foot over here. I said, I'm sorry. He said, brother, your sorry is not going to change it. And I said, I can't really do anything about that. So it was one of those brothers. So he saw that there were people, it was raining, and people were running. So he said, you shameless people, rain is a mercy of Allah, and you run from the mercy of Allah? Okay. Next day, Maulana Sahib is walking, and it's raining. They said, Maulana, why are you running in the rain? So yesterday you told us why you're running away from the mercy of Allah, and today you're running away in the rain. Why are you running? He said, you people are very small-minded people. The mercy of Allah is coming underneath my feet. So I'm hiding so that it doesn't come underneath my feet. I don't want to disrespect the mercy of Allah. So this woman, she loses her necklace and she says, Ya Allah, whatever happens, don't let it fall in the hand of a Maulvi. So the Maulana hears and he gets very upset. He said, what do you think? We're all thieves here? We're going to steal your stuff? She said, no. If a normal person finds it, If I don't get it now, I'll get it on the day of judgment. If I don't get it today, I'll get it on the day of judgment. But if a shaykh finds it, or Maulana finds it, he'll find some hadith or some masala, well, I won't even get on the day of judgment. These people, the Quran or hadith was not molded for themselves. It was a guide for them. Today we sit there and we try justifying our actions through the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not knowing that we are condemning ourselves even furthermore. Going back, Malik bin Dinar, they were men of a different class. They were men who recognized Allah. They were men who were not flattered by these things. He walks past and he says, turns back and he says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Kid says, Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. He's playing with dirt. So Malik bin Dinar says, you know what, since I stopped, some people who are teachers and scholars, they always have a habit. They always have to ask something. Always got to ask a question. So he says, Mal farqu bayna nafs wal aql. Oh child, tell me the difference between the nafs and the intellect. The ego and the intellect. So the child says very beautifully, he said, النفس التي منعتك عن السلام والعقل الذي حرضك عليه. He says, your ego, your nafs, was what prevented you from saying salam to me. That I'm a bigger person. I'm older, I'm a sheikh. Why should I turn around and say salam to this child? وَالْعَقْلُ الَّذِي حَرَّضَكَ عَلَيْهِ. And it was your intellect and your brain that said, no, كَانَ النَّبِي صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ يُسَلِّمُ عَلَى الصِّبْيَانِ. That the Prophet of Allah used to say salam to children, therefore I should also say salam to children. Our ego is like an itch. Our nafs is like an itch. What happens when you have a little mosquito bite? Are there no mosquitoes in Queens or Brooklyn? You itch. What happens if you actually scratch the bite? What's the solution? Brush? There's a new home remedies. When we were small, no matter what happened, my mom would give us, you know what haldi is? Haldi, no matter what happened, you hurt your foot, she gives you haldi. It was a cure for everything. An itch, a mosquito bite. You scratch it, the more you scratch, the more it itches. The more you scratch, the more it itches. Our nafs is the same. The more you feed it, the more it craves. The more you control, I'll request that those people who are talking in the back to please not talk, as it disrupts me from thinking. The more you feed your ego, the more it desires more. There's a difference between your nafs and shaitan. Sometimes a thought creeps in your mind and you say, is it from shaitan? Is it my nafs? What's the difference? I'll tell you the difference today. Shaitan, he only cares about the fact that you must do a sin. And the nafs is like a child. It wants one thing and that's all it wants. I have a little nephew at home. When he wants something, that's all. He wants nothing else but that one specific thing. He wants that small car. He wants that car. You bring him a Ferrari. He doesn't care. He wants that small car. Not that we bring him Ferraris or anything. Shaitan only cares if you don't do it this way, do it that way. For example, it comes to your mind that there's this girl that you like and you should talk to her. So now you try hitting her up. She says, I'm busy. Girl A. I'm busy. If it was your nafs telling you, you would say, okay, you know what? It's done. Tomorrow we'll talk. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But if it is shaitan that is telling you, you'll say, oh, girl A, she's busy. What about her friend? Maybe I should ask her if her friend is busy. She's busy. Oh, what about C? You can't do one sin. Let's do another sin. No, third sin. No, fourth sin, fifth sin. His purpose is only that you commit sin. Whereas your nafs is like a child. It whines for one thing. How do you train a child? You don't give him what he asks. You keep giving that child whatever he desires and that child becomes spoiled. And it is for this reason today, our lives are surrounded around material. We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. We buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. A materialistic world. I was reading statistics. We talk about that the world today that we live in, there's a lot of comfort. And there's a lot of ease. We got nice cars and mashallah, cell phones or hell phones. And we got credit cards and we got this Facebook and Twitter. We do whatever we want. Do you know in today's youth, go and ask half of you are youth. Let me ask you this question. How many of you are suffering from depression? I don't want to see a show of hands. How many of you are suffering from depression? How many of you are suffering from loneliness? How many of you are feeling that you don't get enough attention? Where is this coming from? Your nafs is used to, and I request the brothers one more time to please keep their volumes low. If you want to talk, outside the masjid is a beautiful place to talk. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawti an-nabi. Rasulullah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, O you who believe, do not raise your voice above the voice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And tahbata a'malukum wa antum la tash'urun. Your good deeds will all be finished because you disrespected the words of Rasulullah and you won't even realize it. The ulama write, after the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this ayat fits upon the ahadith of Rasulullah. That when someone is saying the hadith of Rasulullah, don't talk at the same time. Disrespecting the words of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Your nafs. It requires you to be socially aware of Facebook. Whatever happens, you need to put it on Facebook. I need to put it on Twitter. You want to know reality what Facebook or Twitter sounds like? If you get a random kid standing up in the middle like that kid just said, yeah. It sounded so out of place. Imagine a random person stands up in the middle and says, I had ice cream for dinner. Another guy says, wow, that Ferrari was nice. Who cares? But this is the reality, a platform where you can just say whatever the heck comes to your mind, throw it online. And a bunch of people will either like it or comment it. We're so used to people making us feel good. We're so used to feeding our nafs. Whether it be things that are tangible or things that are intangible. And that is why we can't taste the sweetness of Iman. And that is why when you come to the masjid, 5 minutes later you're like, oh, you know what? MashaAllah, I did my good deeds for the day, for the week. Usually it's Jummah to Jummah. One brother comes, Wallahi, I kid you not. One brother came and told me that, is he going for Jummah? He said, no. I prayed Jummah last week. I have 2 more Jummahs to miss. Because the hadith says 3 Jummahs you can miss. That's the enough spiritual boost to have. Your nafs is because we feed it. And whatever thing it desires. Oh yeah, I was telling about the statistics of suicide. You live in a world where everything is at ease. I mean, I stood at the borders of Jordan, at the Zatari camp. You talk of I got problems in my life, 99 problems in my life. No, your life is not a problem. I stood at the borders of the Zatari camp, at the border of Jordan and Syria. And I said, I travel all over the place. I'm like Dora the Explorer, the Islamic version. I went there and I said, you know what? I want to go visit Damascus. How far is Damascus? While I am saying this, I hear, "3 a.m. in the morning." I asked the person, I said, what is that sound? He said, oh, those are bombs falling down. I said, how often do you hear them? He said, we wake up to them and we sleep to them. Allah has saved you from all these things. Allah has given you peace. Allah has given you tranquility. And yet you take your nafs and you go and you feed it these things. Whatever it desires, you grant it to it. And then you ask her, why do I not feel close to Allah? Because you're feeding the wrong thing. You're not training. It's like saying, why is my son spoiled? Think of your nafs just like a child. Or little brother, or little sister. Or if you're the young person in the family, think of it like yourself. What happens when whatever they ask and your parents give it to them? They become a spoiled brat. Your nafs is like a brat. It's a spoiled brat. These kids over there, what are their lives? Wallahi, you have more fruits, whether they may be artificial. You have more fruits in your shampoo than a poor child has on his plate. You have more fruit in your shampoo than a poor child has on his plate. The suicide rate in the world is 800,000 people a year. You want to know how many people that's committing suicide? Every 30 seconds. I've been speaking for almost 20 minutes now. That means 40 people already committed suicide. This materialistic world, we surround ourselves around it and we desire it. And when you ever seen a person who's a drug addict or an alcoholic or a habitual smoker, you take that addiction away from him and he can't control himself anymore. Allah tells us, come and be addicted to me. Be addicted to the sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And we say, Ya Allah, we will run to your slaves and be addicted to your creation. There was once a person. He was a slave. And the king wanted to make him the next in command. So everyone said, you know what, he's a slave. How can you make him the king next in command? He said, no, he has wisdom. They said, he's still a slave. So the king said, okay, you see my palace? Got a baller palace. He said, anyone can, whatever they put their hand on, they can have it. First guy ran straight for the golden bowl. Second guy ran for the beautiful mirror. Third guy ran for the silk curtains. Fourth guy ran for this, and everyone ran. The slave quietly went and put his hand on the king's head. And he said, now everything is mine. The master offers you the world, yet you run to his servants and beg for crumbs. Allah offers you the world, this nafs, this is what tells you, I want this, I want it, I want it. How many of you seen Chris Angel or these other magicians, or what's his name, Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear? It actually happened. I'm not just making things up. These people, you say, oh, you know what, that person's flying, and this person is doing that. This is so amazing. How do they do it? Your nafs, they control their nafs. They feed their nafs very little bit of food. Your nafs is a very powerful thing. And the details of what is a nafs and how a person uses this nafs. Muslims unlock the secret, Hindus unlock the secret, Christians have unlocked the secret, Jews have unlocked the secret. Thousands of years people have unlocked these secrets. But that's not important. What's relevant to you and I today is our nafs and how it drags you and I down. Because no one is putting you in harm's way, or no one is turning you away from the deen of Allah but yourself. We go to eat at tables. I was sitting at a conference today and there was one imam. He said some very beautiful things. And it hit me. He said, he was an African American imam. And generally I say this all the time, that the African American community, they have more value for Islam than we do ourselves, because they were not born into it. They accepted it intellectually. It's not culture for them. That's their life. It was their decision. They're not sitting in the masjid because your mom and dad said there's dinner or something and you gotta come to the masjid. No, they came because this is what they believe. He said, why must you have a full meal? Our teacher used to say back in the day, the actual food was bread and rice. Bhat. In Bangla you say bhat, right? That was the actual food. And then people put a little bit of curry in there to make it edible. Now the real food is the curry. And the bread and rice is a supplementary item. You don't go to the store, to the restaurant and say, can I get some rice? You go and you say, okay, I'll have some butter chicken and chicken Manchurian and shutki. Yeah, I don't know what shutki is. I've had it in Sylhet. I want some mishti and I want this. And, oh yeah, would you like rice or naan with it? I'll have both. We say so many times at a dawah, people, like I said, we use these texts to feed our ego, feed our nafs. People go to a dawah, people go to a party. And they say, after you eat all the way, they say, brother, the meetha, you must eat the mishti, the sweet, it's sunnah. What about the eating 1/3 part? You'll eat 3/3 of your stomach and then say, oh yeah, dessert is sunnah. One time my father took his kid and he said, listen man, mommy doesn't cook at home. So we're going to a dawat and you're going to eat food. And eat as much as you can. Fill your stomach up. Whatever you do, don't drink water. He said, He said, don't drink water. Somebody gonna get hurt. So the kid goes, he's eating food, and you know our food is pretty spicy. So he's eating food, and kid's burning, looks, his father's not looking there. Okay, quietly grabs the water. His dad's looking at him. You know that time you're watching TV and all of a sudden the bad scene comes and then your parents walk in? That was that kid. His father, he said, oh, mar gaya. I'm dead now. You know, he walks out. His father comes. Obviously it didn't happen in America. Slaps him and says, did I not tell you not to drink water? He said, Dad, but hear me out first. He said, what is it? He said, Dad, I ate food. It got full all the way. So I drank the water, so the food got condensed. So I could eat more. Why didn't you tell me first? Why must we have a full meal? Why can we not eat a little bit? Starve ourselves. Is there more food? No, there isn't. Take a drink of water. Why must we go inside our closets and we see a wide array of clothes and we say, I have nothing to wear. Girls do this all the time. Oh my God, I have nothing to wear. She's got like 40 pairs of clothes. Got hijabs in every color. You guys do this. They go into the fridge, open their fridge is stocked with all the food inside. They say, Mom, there's nothing to eat at home. I mean, if I was a mother, I'd say, what the heck did you just see right now? They say that if you have a fridge, some clothes on your back, a roof over your head, and some change in your pocket, you're richer than 70% of historical beings that have existed on this planet. Think about it. You're richer than 70% of not the people of this era, but of humans that have ever been on this planet. You are enjoying life more than anyone ever in history enjoyed life. Think about it. And this is why we have a spiritual dilemma. This is why we can't feel Allah. This is why we don't get close to Allah. This is why we come to the masjid and we say, you know what? 5 minutes, if the speaker is not making me laugh or the speaker doesn't sound good, you don't give a crap what the speaker has to say. You're going to walk out of here and they're going to say, oh, you know what? This was funny. This was good. But what did we take out of it? It has not, before speeches used to be food for thought. Now they're candy for the ears. Amusement. And if it's not amusement, we're not going to sit there and listen to it. My teacher, Mufti Wasim, hafidahullah wa ra'ahu. May Allah give him a long life. He was a very monotone person. To the point, his oratory skills were such that when he would come up and speak, he would close his eyes because of the crowd. But he was such a man whose knowledge was such an ocean that when I went to Masjid Al-Aqsa with him, and the Imam is my friend, so I said, you know what, this is a big sheikh from South Africa, can you request him to say some words? So he said, okay, let him say some words. Wallahi, it was just a 20-25 minute speech in Arabic. The Imam of Masjid Al-Aqsa every day after that would wait for my teacher to finish his tahajjud, finish his ishraq, so he could sit with him, talk to him, give him breakfast, tour him around the whole Masjid Al-Aqsa. It was because they understood and valued it. It didn't make a difference. Now today we look at, okay, you know what, we're having a program, we have to invite speakers. Which speaker is, mashallah, the most loudest speaker? Which speaker is the most entertaining speaker? Going back. We need to control ourselves, our nafs. One of the greatest things, think about it. Your Facebook. These videos, these YouTube vines that we have. What's the whole purpose of them? To attract attention. So that we can be known. We post these statuses, we post these comments. Why? So people know about us. You know how many times you go, you meet somebody, hey, did you read yo, you read that status I posted up? Yeah, I did. Yo, you didn't like it though. Oh, my bad, bro. You know, my Facebook, it's tripping. Oh, alright. I'm gonna check when I go home. Seclude yourself from the dunya. And turn yourself towards Allah. Is it easy? No, it's not. You wanna buy a Mustang, or you wanna buy a Ferrari, or you wanna buy a nice car? It's not easy. You gotta go and work your butt off for it. Why? How is Jannah so easy? We expect to sit down here and say, well, you know what? Jannah should be like a video game for me. There should be some cheat code somewhere. I'm gonna find it, I'm gonna put it in, and that's it. I'm gonna get to Jannah. We aspire Jannah, but yet we do nothing to go towards it. We do nothing to curb ourselves. And my time is very limited. I have 7 minutes left. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life. And one of the main reasons is, you and I can sit down and say we're Muslims and we can say we're mu'mins, but the reality of the matter is, we don't have the correct amount of conviction over the words of Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the reality of the matter. The reality is that you and I can say we are great Muslims, this and that, but if we really believed it, our lives would be different. You go, you're driving. Or do you guys have traffic cams in New York? What happens when you get to usually you guys are driving in the streets of New York, because I have a lot of New York friends. Whenever they sit in any car, they generally don't have cars, but whenever they sit in a car, they become automatically Paul Walker. Right? And they're, mashallah, gone in 60 seconds. But when that traffic cam comes, they drive like a grandma. All the way, brakes up. Wait, what happened? What happened to you now, man? You were driving so fast. No, I'm gonna get a ticket. He knows he's gonna get a ticket. He has that conviction. And this is ihsan. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time. My time is very limited. I'm gonna run you through a story very quickly. There was a sahabi by the name of Suraqa bin Malik. He was told that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was doing hijrah with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and they were crossing the desert towards Medina Munawwara. Nowadays, there's a road called Tariq al-Hijrah in Saudi, from Mecca to Medina, and that was the exact road that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam took when he went to Medina Munawwara. So he was told that, you know what, if you capture Muhammad, if anyone captures Muhammad, he's on the most wanted list, you're gonna get 100 camels. For you and I, 100 camels is like 100 Ferraris. Right? You get a whole dealership. You don't even become an owner, you become a dealer all of a sudden. I know you New Yorkers know about being dealers. So he goes on to say, tries to chase Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Long story short, first time attempt, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam turned around, did dua, his horse started sinking. He said, Muhammad, you know what, I apologize, I'm not gonna do this again. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, okay, ya Allah, don't sink him. His horse comes up. This happened 2-3 times. The last time he said, you know what, I'm gonna stop chasing you. He lost 100 camels, right? If he would have captured the Prophet, he would have gotten 100 camels. The Prophet ﷺ always gave back. And this is part of not always thinking about yourself, not always being selfish. When our nafs, when we constantly feed it, we worry about ourselves and nobody else. We think about how can I attain happiness? How can I attain a pleasure? I don't care what happens to anybody else. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always reciprocated. He turned around and he said, you know what, Suraqa? How would you think of that day when you will be wearing the golden manacles of the king of Persia? The Prophet was at a rock bottom, spiritual, financial, any type of support he had, he was at a rock bottom at that moment. That was his lowest point. If it was you and I, we'd say, hey buddy, you could barely get to Medina by yourself, and you're promising me Obama's Rolex on his watch? That's not gonna fly. It was their conviction. 2 decades later, 2.5 decades later, Suraqa bin Malik is on his deathbed. Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu just conquered Persia, and he said, before anyone touches anything, Persia was like America, was like England, was like China. It was the superpower. And the president of Persia, or the king of Persia, was the strongest man alive, most powerful man alive. So he came and he said, when they conquered the Persian castle, they said, send all the gold to Medina Munawwara. Umar radiallahu anhu came and he said, wait, before anyone distributes anything, I need to go find something. He goes and he fishes in it and he finds the golden manacles of the king of Persia. He goes to Suraqa bin Malik and that man is on his deathbed, breathing his last. Wallahi, if it was you and I, we would have left Islam, because like I said, our conviction is weak. Umar radiallahu anhu comes there and he says, oh Suraqa, do you remember the Prophet of Allah promised you the golden manacles of the king of Persia? He said, yes. The Prophet, Umar radiallahu anhu, took them out, put them on the hands of Suraqa, and he said, Suraqa, the Prophet also said, gold has been made haram upon my ummah, the men of my ummah. So I must remove them now. And he took them off. and Suraqa breathes his last. The conviction, we lack the conviction. And that is why we say, well, you know what? Work hard, play hard. Jannat will come when the time has come. We're gonna become pious later on. We're gonna leave all this life. Your nafs feeds your different ego, and I have 3 minutes left. One is the ego of strength. And I'll run through them very quickly. You start working out in the gym, start benching, 180, 190, 200. Now you're all pumped up, walking with your chest high. And say, generally you walk like this, but today, mashallah, because you came from the gym, you break a couple of buttons too. So, oh man, I'm trying to put my buttons on, but those dumbbells, they do something to you. Allah had a nation stronger than you and I, Ad and Thamud. You and I, when we start fighting each other, or small little kids over here, they throw spitballs, they take a rubber band and those wasps and they shoot them. These guys, they didn't play. They grabbed boulders and chucked it at one another. Man ashaddu minna quwwa. They said, who's stronger than us? You think you and I are strong? You bench 300-400 pounds? These guys benched mountains. These guys benched mountains. More stronger people than them didn't exist on this earth. Allah said, you have pride against me, wipe them out. Wealth. The pride of wealth. I got money. I got bucks. I got that bling bling. I got that Benjamins. I got that platinum card. Qarun. A man so wealthy that the key to the lock, to the door of his treasury required 10 men to lift it up. Imagine how big the key is. Imagine how big the lock is. Imagine how big the door is. Imagine how big the treasury is. Imagine how much treasure is inside there. Allah said, you had pride against me. Allah made the earth swallow him. More richer than him, you and I can never become. More richer than him, you and I can never become. The ego. And the last, or there's many of them, but my time is finished. The last is the ego of knowledge. A person feels proud about himself. And that is why on the Day of Judgment, Allah will call scholars up. A lot of you, mashallah, madrasa students, hifz students, what happens? I was in, can I get 5 more minutes? One last story, and then I'm gonna cut it loose. There was this kid. I was flying from Germany in Lufthansa Airlines from Frankfurt to back to Chicago. I was on Umrah, and there was this chubby 12, 13-year-old kid next to me, and next to him was his grandfather. And the lady comes with some biscuits or something, those the little packaged things. So she gives one to me, she gives one to the little brother in the middle, and she gives it to the grandfather. So all of a sudden the grandfather gives his packet to the little kid as well, and the little kid's reading the back of the ingredients. And I'm just sitting there and I'm looking at the kid, and he looks at it and he says, it's all halal. And he gives it to the grandfather. And I looked at it and I said, oh mashallah, I said, your son inspects, Sheikh Hamza Maqbool is part of Hafsa. Hafsa is not a girl's name, it's actually a halal organizing system where they look for halal chicken and, the halal slaughterhouse, and they certify restaurants. So I said, oh, mashallah, your child, he certifies halal. So the grandfather says, yes, he's mashallah becoming a hafiz. And I said, oh, with that certification, half this masjid is qualified. So anyway, a little while later, remember I told you, the junoon, the pride of knowledge. So then a little while later, lady comes, she says, would you like chicken or seafood? So I said, I want seafood. Goes to the kid, would you like chicken or seafood? He says, chicken. And I said, you're eating chicken? He's like, yeah. I was like, is the chicken halal? He said, all the flights from Dubai Emirates have halal food on them. I said, buddy, we're in Frankfurt, and the flight is Lufthansa. And he said, oh. I said, yeah, go get your seafood. So he returned the chicken meal. The point I'm trying to say is that the pride that comes in with knowledge, that we know everything. Allah says, فَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Above every knowledgeable person, another person comes. That's why when Musa alayhi salam, a Nabi of Allah, from Ulul Azam, one who spoke directly to Allah, whose knowledge did not require Jibreel in between or anyone else, it was direct him and Allah. When the question was asked to him, that who's the most knowledgeable person? He said, I am. Allah did not like it. Allah said, no, put him on a mission. That you might be the Nabi of Allah, Tawrat might be in your hands. You might be Kalimullah, but this sentiment was not worthy of you. Our nafs, I go back to it, is like a small child. Train it. It's not going to be easy. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Hujibatil Jannah bil makarih. Wa hujibatil nar bil shahawat. Jahannam has a curtain over it. You know, you ever go to a nice fancy restaurant and you see this beautiful silver cover on top of the food, and then you pulls it out and there's like beautiful looking chicken or turkey or something, and you're like, oh my God. That's how Jahannam is. Beautified with desires. So you succumb to your desires and that's the path you take. And Jannah, on the other hand, is filled with pain. And it's difficult. But just the way anything in life is. No pain, no gain. If you don't work after your nafs, it's not going to happen 1, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. It's not going to happen. We expect that we raise our hands, do dua, and all of a sudden, automatically everything becomes okay. Musa alayhi salam, he's talking to Allah. Only a couple of times in his life he spoke to Allah. He wasn't talking to Allah on a daily basis. A couple of times in his life he spoke to Allah. The first time was at the tree. When Allah said, ask dua, he said, Rabbi shrah li sadri, ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي أشدد به أزري وأشركه في أمري. Then he said, Ya Allah, Fir'aun is becoming a big problem. Take care of him. Imagine, you are talking directly to Allah. We do dua all the time. We don't know if our duas are accepted. But every time we do dua, Allah says, Musa, you did dua. قَدْ أُوتِيتَ سُؤْلَكَ يَا Musa. Musa, your dua, I accepted it. Whose mission? Allah's mission. To take out Fir'aun. To preach in Egypt. It's Allah's mission. Fir'aun is whose enemy? Allah's enemy. Who's doing dua? Musa is doing dua. Directly to Allah. Allah responds and says, قَدْ أُوتِيتَ سُؤْلَكَ يَا Musa. Musa, your dua has been accepted. And whatever you asked, I've granted to you. The reality of that dua materialized 40 years later. The reality of that dua materialized 40 years later. It's a long journey. And it's a long journey. If Musa Kalimullah, his dua got accepted 40 years later, you think mine and your duas are so strong that we raise our hands and before we wipe our faces, mashallah, everything's okay. I'll leave you with this. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give one and all the tawfiq. My ears are closer to my mouth than anyone else's ear. May He first give me the tawfiq to act upon what has been said. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.